Why did a crying mother bear bring her dying cub to a human? A story of compassion and karma. Have you ever wondered if you could live a life completely isolated in the forest, far away from the noise of the outside world, untouched by the prying eyes and laughter of society? In that silence, would you find the meaning of life or only eternal loneliness? Aden Brody, a man who once lived in the fast-paced rush of the outside world, now finds peace in a small cabin nestled among endless green hills. A former journalist turned aspiring author, Aden chose a life of seclusion, far from the chaos of the city, to reconnect with nature. But deep down, has he truly found peace, or is it simply a way of running away? Aden's cabin sits on a remote patch of land, where trees grow wild and the only sound is the wind brushing through pine branches. He has no one to talk to, no neighbors to greet each morning, just himself and the vast wilderness. Each day, Aden wakes to absolute stillness, listening to birdsong and breathing in the earthy scent of the forest as he opens his door. But sometimes, when night falls, he can't shake the feeling of being lost even in his own home. He starts his morning as usual, stepping outside in a worn flannel shirt and mud-stained boots. Sitting on the porch, he breathes in the crisp morning air, feeling the breeze drip through the leaves. Yet inside, there's a hollow ache, as if he's waiting for something, for change. He doesn't know what he's searching for, but a vague feeling whispers that something is coming, something that might change everything. Then suddenly, before he even realizes it, a presence appears. A massive dark figure stands at the edge of the forest, right in front of his home. In the dim morning light, a giant black bear with tear-filled eyes stands motionless, staring straight at Aden. Could this be the sign he's been waiting for? A turning point in his monotonous life, or merely an inexplicable coincidence? In that moment, Aden is frozen, his heart pounding like it might burst. Fear clouds every thought, but something else rises too, something strange he can't quite describe. A feeling of invisible connection between man and nature. And in that stillness, one question forms in his mind: does he have the courage to face what's about to unfold? This is where the story begins, with the black bear, a symbol of wildness and mystery. Along with it, Aden's life begins to veer into the unknown. Everything seems to be changing, and with every step forward, the truth of Aden's solitude is slowly revealed, along with a strange connection between him and the wild, one he doesn't yet understand. Aden can't believe his eyes. The massive black bear stands right there, its deep, dark eyes shining with a sorrow that words can't capture. Although the creature before him is wild and dangerous, its presence doesn't feel threatening. Instead, there's a quiet calm, a patience, like the bear is waiting for something from him. The bear shows no signs of aggression or fear. It stands there, breathing heavily, body trembling, and tears silently sliding down its black cheeks. Aden is stunned. Why would a wild animal cry? Those tears aren't like rainwater, they seem to carry a deep pain, a sense of loss you can only see in a mother's eyes when her child is in danger. In that instant, Aden's fear begins to fade. What he feels now is a strange surge of emotion. The bear's tears don't threaten him, they plead with him. It's desperation, a cry for help. And somehow, through the silence, Aden understands. Is that bear crying? He whispers, voice trembling, unable to believe what he's witnessing. Looking into the bear's eyes, for the first time in his life, he feels something profoundly emotional, not human emotion, but something from nature itself. How could he have missed it? A mother bear, heartbroken for her cub, delivering a message only those with a sensitive soul can hear. Before he can gather himself, Aden sees the bear making a strange movement. Slowly, it opens its mouth. And from that wide mouth, It places something gently on the ground. A tiny, blood-covered creature, limp and fragile, rests there. It's a cub. Lifeless. Its limbs dangle like a forgotten rag doll. Aden's heart stops. Everything around him goes silent. No birdsong. No wind. Only the image of the motionless cub on the cold ground. The mother bear looks at him, eyes full of hope, as if begging him to do something she cannot. He stands frozen, overwhelmed by guilt and helplessness. Logic tells him there's nothing he can do. He's not a vet, not a wildlife expert. He's just a man. And yet, his heart refuses to walk away. The feeling of a protector, a father, awakens in him. He looks into the mother bear's eyes filled with despair, but also unwavering trust. A whisper runs through his mind, "You have to help." And that's all it takes. Aden kneels, hands trembling in his old flannel shirt. He gently lifts the cub, as softly as he can, terrified that any sudden movement might send it away forever. He carries it into his home, every step heavy with fear. He has no idea what he's doing, but something deeper is guiding him. Every passing minute deepens the strange connection between them. The mother bear waits on the porch, silent, patient, watching his every move. It's as if she understands. She doesn't attack, doesn't growl, she simply waits. And Aden, driven by instinct and compassion, acts with the care of a mother, a protector. He will do everything he can to save this tiny life, wild or not. As he lays the cub on the sofa, Aden feels like he's entering a life or death battle, not just for the cub, but for himself. He doesn't know if he can save it, but one thing is certain: he won't give up. Aden stands quietly at the window, still holding the cub. Its tiny body is weak, almost lifeless, but still breathing faintly. He can't stop thinking about the mother bear's eyes full of hope, waiting for a miracle. He places the cub on the sofa, wrapping it in old towels and a thick blanket. Despair creeps into him. Cold sweat beads on his forehead as he steps back, afraid to look too long in case it's the last moment. "You can live, can't you?" he whispers, not knowing if words make any difference. The weight of potential failure grips him. He hasn't called a vet or anyone. He knows no one can help right now, only he can. Every choice lies on his shoulders, and the silence in the house is a reminder of his isolation. Sometimes, life and death are only a breath apart. He glances outside. The mother bear is still there, unmoving. Her eyes locked on the window, full of patience and trust. A profound silence fills the space, yet in that silence, Aden feels something powerful, an unspoken connection. In that moment, Aden realizes even he doesn't fully understand why he's doing this. Why risk everything to help a wild animal he's unprepared to care for? Maybe, like the mother bear, he too is searching for something to believe in, some thread that ties him to the world. And maybe, it was the bear's unconditional love that made him incapable of walking away. Aden returns to the cub, listening to its weak breaths. He runs a hand gently over its fur, damp with the scent of forest earth. He tries not to let worry take over, but the truth is, he doesn't know what to do next. His knowledge of animals comes only from scraps he picked up during his days as a journalist. Nothing he ever wrote prepared him for this. All he has now is instinct and the devotion of a mother's heart, even if he isn't one. Then, an idea strikes him. He remembers seeing baby animals revived with honey water. Why not try? He rushes to the kitchen, grabs an old jar of honey, and mixes it with warm water. His hands shake, but he moves with purpose. Back by the cub's side, Aden gently opens its mouth and, using an old syringe, begins to give it the honey water. At first, there's no response. Desperation creeps in. But he doesn't stop. Drop by drop until finally, a small movement. The cub's tongue twitches slightly, as if trying to swallow. It's a tiny sign. But it's hope. Outside, the mother bear remains motionless. Watching. Trusting. Aden can't be sure if he'll succeed, but one thing he knows for certain: she chose him, a complete stranger, to entrust with this life. He sits beside the cub, continuing to feed it drop by drop. Every time it swallows, his heart lights up. A strange bond forms him and the bear mother, fighting together to save a fragile life. This isn't just about saving an animal, it's a battle of patience, compassion, and sacrifice. The house is silent except for Aden's heavy breaths and the whispering wind through the window. And out there, the mother bear waits, silent, hopeful, and full of unspoken trust. Aden sits quietly, eyes locked on the tiny cub lying on the sofa, wrapped in towels and blankets. Every drop of honey water is a lifeline. Though the cub remains weak, its gradual swallowing brings a fragile hope. Aden's heart races, not just from fear, but from something deeper, a realization that he cannot give up. The mother bear still waits on the porch, eyes filled with faith. Every time Aden looks out, he feels those eyes deep, steady, believing in him. She entrusted him with a miracle she couldn't perform herself. And now, Aden knows, he can't let her down. Yet the truth was, Aden had no real idea what he was doing. He wasn't a veterinarian, nor did he have any experience caring for wild animals. Everything he did came from instinct, determination, and, perhaps most of all, compassion. Aden thought back to the life he used to lead, rushing through crowded streets, consumed by work, never having time for anything beyond his deadlines. Now, in this small forest cabin, he felt he had been given a mission far more sacred than any article he had ever written: to save a fragile life, whether human or wild. He stood and walked to the window. The mother bear was still there, motionless, calm, yet somehow speaking to him with her eyes. A silent reminder: you can't give up. Aden felt a strange, unspoken connection with her, something strong and deep, something he couldn't explain. But her presence felt essential to this battle. Returning to the cub, Aden looked at its limp body on the sofa. The wounds covering it weren't just the aftermath of a struggle, they were signs of life slowly slipping away. Gently, he touched its tiny paw, feeling the weak breath and cold skin. Time was running out. If he didn't act soon, the cub might not survive. While searching for ideas, a memory surfaced: a conversation with an old friend, a veterinarian who once said, "When a creature is dying, the two most important things are warmth and hydration. Only then does the body have a chance to recover. Don't give up too early, you never know when a miracle might happen." The words echoed like a guiding light. Aden hurried through the cabin, grabbing more blankets and arranging a cozy space for the cub. He wrapped it tightly, trying to warm its fragile body, a quiet act of love, even though love alone might not be enough. But it was all he had. He returned to the syringe, drew more honey water, and gently fed the cub again. At first, there was no response. Still, he didn't give up. And then a miracle. The cub twitched. Its lips trembled. Slowly, it began to lick the sweet drops. A small sign. But for Aden, it meant life was returning. Sitting beside the cub, Aden felt a powerful energy rise within him. He looked out the window again into the tear-filled eyes of the mother bear and knew the cub, though still fragile, had a chance. He had done everything he could. And now, he wasn't just a man living alone in the woods. He was part of something greater, a story of trust, hope, and unconditional love. Outside, the morning light slowly filled the forest. But inside the cabin, time seemed to pause. A turning point had arrived. And no matter how the world outside might change, Aden had found a new meaning to his life. Time passed in worry and perseverance. Each day, Aden experienced a swirl of emotions: hope, anxiety, exhaustion, and sometimes despair. Every morning, just as the first light crept through the windows, he rose and checked on the cub. That faint warmth gave him the will to believe hope was still alive. The cub still lay on the sofa, eyes open but unfocused. Its body remained cold, yet tiny signs of life persisted. Each breath gave Aden something to hold onto. The wounds had begun to scab, but the cub still couldn't move its legs, and the dried blood near its ears had yet to heal. Aden couldn't take his eyes off it. Every slight movement made his heart race, like a part of him had come back to life. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about the mother bear, patiently waiting outside, unmoving. Each day, Aden felt more deeply the mother's wordless trust. Though mother and cub were separated, their bond had surpassed any physical barrier. "You can do this," Aden whispered to himself, though fear gnawed at him. He didn't know if he had the strength to save the cub, but he couldn't walk away. He had to try everything. Day by day, he continued caring for the cub with everything he had, warming it, feeding it honey water, comforting it through sudden tremors. He couldn't forget the mother bear's eyes, desperate yet full of faith. Every time he remembered that look, a new strength awakened inside him. He had no choice, he had to save this little life. But it wasn't easy. Aden felt he was facing a mountain far too steep. Each time he looked into the cub's eyes, questions echoed in his mind. Am I enough? Can I really save it? There were no clear answers. But he knew one thing: he couldn't stop trying. There were nights he stayed awake, sitting silently beside the cub, listening to its weak breathing. He wouldn't take his eyes off it, afraid even a moment of distraction could be the end. He whispered softly to it, pouring all his love and hope into those quiet words. In those hours, Aden wasn't just caring for a wild creature, he was tending to the part of himself that had lost faith in life. Gradually, the cub began to show signs of healing. Each day, it grew a little stronger. Its wounds began to close, and its legs, though still frail, started to twitch. Aden watched as it made its first tiny movements, as if it were awakening from a long slumber. A faint smile crossed his lips, but he stayed alert. It's not over yet, he thought. One afternoon, while preparing more honey water, he heard a soft sound outside. The mother bear had moved closer, though still keeping a safe distance, quietly observing. In that moment, Aden felt an incredible connection with her. She didn't need to speak, her eyes, full of hope, said everything. Each time he looked at her, Aden felt he was doing something greater than saving a cub. He was doing something right. Participating in nature's endless cycle where man and beast, though different, could still understand one another. Through those challenging days, he had learned that love and patience have no boundaries, and that sometimes, a life is saved not by skill or knowledge, but by faith and sacrifice. In the quiet of the forest, under the golden light of sunset, Aden knew he had done everything he could to give the cub a chance. And that small miracle, though humble, had transformed him. The days of caring for the cub seemed endless. Yet with each one, Aden felt something changing inside himself. Fatigue gave way to clarity. His focus sharpened, and his fear was replaced by a strange peace. He had become part of the cub's world just as it had become a part of his. Though his attention stayed on the cub, he never forgot the mother bear waiting outside. She remained there, always watching, never attacking, never retreating. Her eyes held no malice, only patience and faith. She seemed to understand that Aden was doing everything he could. With each passing day, Aden felt the invisible thread between him and the mother bear pulling tighter. He couldn't explain it, but the feeling was unmistakable. Every time he met her gaze, he didn't just see a wild animal, he saw a mother pleading for help. And it moved him deeply. One evening, with the cub finally asleep, Aden stepped outside for some air. The mother bear immediately turned toward him, her black eyes never leaving his face. In the stillness of the forest, they seemed to be sharing something, unspoken thoughts and emotions only nature could understand. He didn't know why, but he sensed she could feel everything he was going through. She didn't speak, didn't he need to? Her eyes said it all, not just expectation, but silent gratitude. Aden realized then that she had trusted him from the very beginning, and trusting him with a sacred task he couldn't refuse. From that day on, every time he saw her at the window, he no longer felt fear or uncertainty. He felt connection. As if they had become something like a family, an unusual family, yes, but a real one nonetheless. The mother bear was no longer just a wild creature. She was a companion, an ally in this fight. Then one morning, while tending to the cub, he noticed a miraculous change. It was moving more, its eyes meeting his, its tiny lips twitching as if trying to speak. It was a clear sign it was healing. Aden's heart swelled. He looked into its eyes, then glanced out the window. The mother bear was still there, watching every move, waiting for the result of all their shared struggle. In that moment, Aden understood, life and death aren't just matters of time. Sometimes, they are about deep connection between creatures, between man and nature. He hadn't just saved a cub. He had saved a part of himself. He was no longer just a man alone in the forest. He belonged here now, like a leaf in the wind, inseparable from it. As the days went on, every glance at the mother bear confirmed this miracle. Their bond, though wordless, was undeniable. Between him, the cub, and the mother, something beautiful had formed, something beyond natural boundaries. And in his heart, Aden knew this life held wonders no one could explain, only feel and live through. Without ever speaking, the mother bear had taught him the greatest lesson of all: sometimes, we don't need to search for salvation. Sometimes, we just need to believe and step into the unknown. And in doing so, love, patience, and faith will carry us through. Days passed, and though the spring skies still carried the lingering chill of late winter, the bear cub grew stronger with each sunrise. What began as small signs of life slowly turned into remarkable milestones. Every time Aden looked at the cub, it moved with more strength, its spirit seemingly returning to its once frail body. The deep wounds had faded, now replaced by faint scars, evidence of healing. Aden couldn't help but smile each time he saw the cub rolling on the sofa, its body visibly more vigorous day by day. The mother bear was still there, always outside the cabin, never stepping closer, but always watching. Aden felt it clearly, she tracked his every move, and her cub's too. Every time he glimpsed her through the window, he felt as if he was part of something greater than himself. It wasn't just about saving a wild animal anymore. It was about a connection, one deep and wild and real, that he had never understood until now. Each morning, when he walked softly toward the cub, hope swelled in his chest. He hadn't given up. He had done everything he could. And now, the cub opened its eyes with each dawn, letting out a soft growl as if greeting the outside world. Caring for the cub no longer felt like a time of tension and fear, it had become a ritual of hope. One day, while sitting beside the cub, Aden noticed a striking change. The cub began to stand its footing, shaky but determined. Step by unsteady step, it began to walk, slowly finding balance. Aden's heart pounded. He couldn't believe what he was seeing after all that had happened. A smile spread across his face. He whispered, "You did it, little one," never taking his eyes off the cub, afraid to miss this miracle. Yet despite the joy, Aden couldn't shake his underlying worry. The cub had recovered, but the path ahead was uncertain. It still wasn't completely self-sufficient, and its wounds needed more time to fully heal. What haunted him most was the question of whether the cub could truly reintegrate into the wild. Deep down, he knew there was no alternative. He had to give it the chance to stand on its own. Every day, he continued nurturing the cub, helping it heal while quietly preparing for its departure. He knew he couldn't keep it forever. A part of him understood that freedom was where the cub truly belonged. Then, one weekend morning, the cub moved with greater ease, still a bit unsteady, but far more confident. Aden watched, torn by a bittersweet ache. The cub was nearly ready, and he couldn't hold on any longer. The truth settled heavy in his chest: it was time to let go. The mother bear still waited outside, silent and patient. But now, Aden saw something else: expectation. She wasn't just observing. She was waiting for the right moment to reclaim her child. He wondered if she knew. Could she sense the cub's recovery? Did she feel that the time had come? One morning, as Aden prepared breakfast in the kitchen, he heard a soft noise outside the door. He rushed out. This time, the mother bear wasn't sitting passively. She stood tall, walking slowly toward the house, her eyes locking with Aden's. In that moment, he felt a deep, indescribable surge inside. It wasn't pressure or demand, it was the quiet power of patience rewarded. Aden knew, the moment had come. The cub was ready to return to the wild. But the weight of that goodbye pressed hard on his heart. He looked at the cub one last time, his eyes filled with emotion, as if saying goodbye without words. It was a feeling of loss but also peace. He had done everything he could. He gently opened the door. The mother bear and cub stood in front of him, the bond between them unmistakable. And in that moment, something shifted within Aden. He understood now that love and sacrifice know no borders. And sometimes, the truest way to love is to set something free. Aden turned away, saying nothing. But in his heart, there was a new sense of freedom. He knew the cub would never forget him, just as he would never forget the cub. A small miracle had taken place between man and nature, and he would carry it forever. In the days following the cub's release, Aden's life returned to the quiet rhythm he had once longed for. But beneath that calm, a subtle worry lingered. Every time he looked out the window and imagined the mother and cub fading into the forest, a familiar ache returned. Would the cub survive? Could the mother protect it from the wild's dangers? One evening, as Aden sat on his porch sipping tea, a truck rolled to a stop on the edge of his land. His stomach tightened. A wildlife agency vehicle parked just beyond the clearing. Anxiety surged. He hadn't dealt with outsiders in so long. Everything had been peaceful. Until now. As the doors opened, a man in uniform stepped out, followed by a woman. Their expressions were serious, not the warmth he'd hoped for. Aden stood, uneasy but composed. "Good morning, sir," the man said with measured calm. "We're from the Department of Wildlife Protection. We've received reports that a wild bear has been under care here. We need to speak with you about that." Aden's heart sank. A wave of tension rose. Why now, after everything had settled? He steadied himself and responded carefully. Yes, there was a mother bear and her cub. I helped the cub recover, he said, voice calm but guarded. But they both returned to the wild. There's no danger anymore. The man didn't seem satisfied. You understand, sir, this isn't just about helping a wild animal. Caring for wildlife poses risks to you, and to the area. Especially once they've recovered and re-entered the wild. They could pose a threat to locals. We also have a responsibility to ensure their return to their proper habitat. Tension flared inside Aden. He had done the right thing, saved a life, and now it felt like he was being accused. Letting the bear go was already painful. Why did they make him feel like it was wrong? They didn't understand the bond, the trust that had grown between him and that little creature. This wasn't just an act of rescue, it was a transformation of the soul. But we still need to assess the area, the woman added gently. To make sure the bears and this environment are safe for everyone. Aden's chest tightened. He knew this was just the beginning: paperwork, inspections, oversight. He couldn't stop it. But he couldn't stop thinking about the bears either. Would they be allowed to live freely? Could they remain undisturbed? I understand, Aden said, his voice slightly hoarse. But I just want to make sure they're left in peace. The cub's strong now. It deserves to be free. The officials exchanged a somber glance, then looked back at him. We'll monitor the area, the man said, but if there's any issue, we'll have to intervene. Aden stood still, powerless. He didn't want to obstruct them. But a deeper fear crept in. What if their presence disrupted everything? Would the bears still have their freedom? As the truck disappeared into the evening fog, Aden remained motionless. He knew this wasn't the end. Rules, regulations, interference, all of it threatened the fragile life he'd helped rebuild. And in that moment, Aden realized, rescue is never simple. Life isn't always protected the way it should be. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees, Aden stood by the window, staring out at the forest. The unease lingered. Though the cub had healed and was ready to return to the wild, the visit from the agency cast a shadow he couldn't ignore. The thought of constant surveillance haunted him. He looked back at the sofa where the cub had once lain. Its eyes were brighter now, its body stronger. It walked confidently and sometimes even bounded through the cabin, testing its newfound strength. But inside, Aden's anxiety never eased. No matter how healthy the cub became, he knew the day of farewell was near. The thought hurt deeply. He knew setting it free was the right thing, but nothing had prepared him for the pain of letting go. Then one late afternoon, as Aden stood on the porch, he spotted the mother bear beneath the trees. She had been there since morning, unmoving, her eyes fixed on him. She was waiting. It was time. Aden turned and looked at the cub resting inside. The ache in his chest was sharp. He didn't want to let it go, but he knew he couldn't keep it either. It was a wild creature. And it had to live the way nature had intended. He gently walked over to the bear cub, softly stroking its back. "It's time, little one," he whispered. The cub opened its eyes, gazing at him with a deep, innocent, and slightly confused look. It didn't understand his words, but it felt the love and tenderness in every gesture. It was no longer the fragile creature it once was. It could now stand, walk with stability, but Aden's heart still ached at the thought of saying goodbye. Aden opened the door and stepped outside, the cub following closely behind. The mother bear remained still, watching every move her child made. The quiet moments between them felt like a scene etched into eternity. Aden stopped before them, bowed slightly, and offered a silent blessing. His heart was heavy, but he knew this was the right thing to do. The cub took one small step back, glanced at Aden once more as if saying farewell, then turned toward its mother. Its steps were no longer clumsy but steady, confident. The mother bear approached, sniffed gently at its body, as if checking whether her child was truly healed. Once satisfied, she bowed her head slightly, as if offering thanks. Then, silently, they both disappeared into the forest, never looking back. Aden stood still, tears in his eyes, but he didn't try to stop them. Deep in his heart, he knew he had done the right thing. Just like his mother once told him, the greatest act of love is letting someone go free. No matter how painful the parting, he understood it was part of the natural order. The cub now belonged to the wild, to the life it was meant to live. As the pair vanished into the forest shadows, Aden felt like a part of him had gone with them. And yet, peace settled over him. He had done everything he could to protect that small life. And now, it had returned to where it was born, where it could live fully, freely. Returning inside, he felt as though a chapter of his life had quietly closed. He shut the door and sat down, tired but content. The days spent nursing the bear cub, though filled with challenge, had been some of the most meaningful of his life. And even though the bears were no longer there, they would live forever in his heart as tender, unforgettable memories. Time passed, and Aden gradually returned to the rhythm of his quiet life. Yet that peace no longer felt the same. The mother bear and her cub were gone, and though he knew he had done the right thing, a part of him couldn't stop thinking about them. The days of caring for the cub, the miraculous moments of recovery, and the sense of connection he felt with the wild, all of it lingered in his mind. Each time he looked out the window, he felt a kind of emptiness, as though a piece of the forest, a piece of the wild world he'd briefly become part of, had vanished. He couldn't deny the bond he had formed with the bears, but deep down he understood, everything he did was just one small part of a larger cycle, one where nature held the final say. Still, the mother bear remained in his thoughts. Whenever he saw the trees sway or heard the wind whisper through the forest, he remembered her, the silent guardian who had brought her dying child to his doorstep in desperation, and later, quietly led that child back to freedom. Then, one morning, while checking his garden, Aden noticed something in the distance at the edge of his land. A familiar silhouette. He couldn't mistake it, the mother bear. Not standing quietly in the woods this time, but walking past his land, almost as if checking in. Aden froze. His heart began to race, first with worry, then with reassurance. She wasn't looking for her cub. She had no purpose other than to simply pass through, returning to a place that had once brought peace. What puzzled him most was her demeanor. She didn't come close to the cabin. She stayed at the border of his land, watching calmly. Her eyes met his, silent, deep, full of understanding and acceptance. Then she turned and slowly walked back into the forest. Aden felt an ending of sorts, as though she had returned just to say goodbye. His heart surged with emotion, but also peace. He knew she no longer worried for her cub. She had completed her duty protecting her child through danger, and now her child was free, living safely in the wild. It warmed Aden in a strange, wonderful way. He realized not everything can be held onto or controlled. In nature, every creature has its own path. And sometimes, true love means letting go, allowing freedom instead of possession. What he shared with the mother bear wasn't ownership. It was trust. A silent, sacred understanding. Looking back at the forest, Aden felt a stillness wrap around him. He knew the mother bear had left him a lasting lesson about resilience, unconditional love, and freedom. What he had done wasn't just saving a life. It was opening his heart to the wild, a world where every being has a right to live as it was meant to, free and untethered. The mother bear might have left, but in Aden's heart, she would remain forever. Just as she taught him love and sacrifice are never forgotten, and the bond between humans and nature always endures, even when unseen. Time continued to pass in the quiet of the forest, and Aden felt that his life had profoundly changed. Caring for the cub, then letting it go, had shifted something deep within him. He was no longer just a man living alone in nature. He had become connected to the wild in a way he never imagined. One morning, as he sat on the porch listening to birdsong, Aden spotted something at his doorstep. A small cluster of ripe berries, wild, sweet, and freshly gathered. They were arranged neatly, as if someone had placed them there intentionally. Aden stared at the berries, a warm wave rising in his chest. He knew instantly, it was a gift from the mother bear and her cub. No words were needed. This was a silent thank you, a sign they remembered the care he had given. Though they'd returned to the wild, they had left a token, a gentle reminder that their connection still existed. He picked up each berry, breathed deeply, and let the forest scent fill his soul. He couldn't deny how much he missed the cub, the weight of it in his arms, the patient waiting of the mother outside his door. The gift felt like a welcome, a wordless gesture of gratitude from a wild world he had once entered and that had never truly let him go. These gifts weren't just fruit. They were symbols, reminders of the living cycle of nature. Even wild animals, long gone from human presence, carried with them a memory, a bond that could not be easily erased. And Aden understood this now, understood it deeply. From that day forward, each morning, a small gift would appear at his door. A bundle of berries. A smooth stone. A perfect twig. All carefully placed. Each one felt deliberate. Each one whispered a message he felt in his chest. The connection between him and the bears, between him and the wild, had never ended. These gifts became symbols of a silent, sacred bond. Sometimes Aden would sit by the window and wonder, were these their way of saying thank you? Though he couldn't be sure, he believed it. These were not just tokens. They were acknowledgments of love, of a bond that only nature could form. Another autumn arrived. The forest around Aden's home exploded into warm golds and brilliant reds. Every day, he walked through his garden, breathing in the crisp air and marveling at nature's beauty. Yet, the ache of memory remained, a quiet longing for the bears. The small gifts they left still carried more meaning than words could express. Reflecting on it all, Aden realized just how much he had changed. Once caught in a world of noise, work, and shallow relationships, he now understood how to listen, how to honor life. He had learned that every creature, no matter how small, holds a place in the great cycle of existence. Though the bears were gone, their lessons remained in his heart. He learned that sometimes, the greatest love is not in holding on but in knowing when to let go. The mother bear needed no thanks. Her simple, quiet gifts were more than enough. Living alone in the forest no longer felt lonely. Though the bears were not at his side, he felt them in every breeze, every rustle of leaves. Each morning, as he stepped outside, he felt himself as part of something greater, a sacred journey of love, freedom, and trust. One day, as he sat on his porch, he came to understand something deeper. The bear's gifts weren't just items. They were bridges between two worlds, human and wild. They were reminders that everything is connected, that every creature plays a role in the balance of nature. And then, On a golden evening, as the forest glowed with sunset, Aden stood on his steps and looked into the distance. He no longer felt sorrow. He understood now that everything has its place, its reason. The mother bear and cub might no longer appear, but they lived on inside him, as part of who he had become. Their lessons were not just about life and death, but about loving without condition, about understanding without words, and sacrificing without regret. Peace filled Aden's soul. The small gifts left behind had become eternal markers in his life. He knew that while seasons would change, the lessons nature and its creatures had gifted him would remain. And so, every autumn, as golden leaves fall, Aden sits quietly on his porch, looking out at the forest. Though the bears no longer come, he finds small gift stones, twigs, berries carefully placed at his doorstep. And he knows, in his heart, the bond between him and the wild was never broken. One early morning, while mist still clung tightly to the forest, Aden awoke with a strange feeling in his chest. He didn't remember how he had slept, but something inexplicable compelled him to rush outside and gaze into the familiar woods. The feeling was like a whisper from the past, a soft call from something unfinished, a story not yet told. As he stood on his porch, breathing in the crisp morning air, a large silhouette swept across his vision. Aden turned, heart pounding. It couldn't be. He shook his head. No, could it be the mother bear? It was. The mother bear with her thick coat and radiant eyes stood once again at the edge of his land. But this time, she wasn't just watching. She was approaching, as though bearing something vital she needed to share. Aden felt an indescribable pull. Was she seeking him again? What had brought her back? Was their story truly over, or was something larger unfolding that he had yet to understand? Before Aden could think, the bear moved closer without pause, eyes locked on his. Each step she took seemed deliberate, like she was guiding him towards something. And in her gaze, Aden saw something that startled him: patience, and deep, unwavering trust. It was as if she were saying, "It's time, Aden. Time for you to know the truth." It was a moment that elevated everything, a threshold between the known and the unknown. Between man and wild mystery. And perhaps, the story of Aden, the mother bear, and the cub wasn't over after all. Did he have the courage to face what lay ahead? Could their bond go even deeper than he had imagined? Let's wait and see in the next chapter what truth is waiting to be uncovered. This may not only transform Aden's life, but shift how we see the entire wild world. What do you think? Is there a deeper connection between humans and nature we've yet to discover? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share this story if it inspired you. Aden stood frozen as the mother bear approached. Her eyes, firm and enigmatic, never left his. Every step she took was a sign, a quiet invitation to explore something he had never dared to imagine. Confused, a little anxious, but filled with curiosity, Aden couldn't grasp why she had returned or whether this would be the final chapter. She didn't stop. She walked slowly but with purpose, like a guide leading him into the woods, towards something that awaited him. Standing at a crossroads, Aden felt himself pulled into a journey he couldn't refuse, even though he had no idea where it would lead. He took a deep breath, and followed her. The forest was still. His footsteps echoed beneath the canopy, the air humming with something different. The smell of earth, the scent of decaying leaves, the sounds of wildlife, it all seemed to change, as if drawing him deeper into a world he hadn't yet seen. After a while, the mother bear stopped and looked back at him, as if signaling him to pause. Aden scanned the surroundings. Nothing seemed unusual, but something felt different. The air was heavier. The silence, deeper. Sunlight streamed through the leaves above, casting radiant streaks on the forest floor like guiding marks. Then, in that golden light, Aden saw something glinting beneath the soil, a large glowing stone, half buried under the leaves and branches. The mother bear stepped closer and nudged it with her snout. It rolled aside, revealing a narrow path leading into the earth. A hidden passage. Aden couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had walked these woods for years, but never had he known this existed. The mother bear glanced at him again. "Follow me," her eyes seemed to say. And he did. His heart raced as he descended behind her. Her pace was steady, her purpose unquestionable. At a fork, she stopped and turned toward a larger cavern space. Inside, Aden felt like he had stepped into another world. A natural cave, its walls covered in soft green moss, its ceiling glittering with bioluminescent stones. The light danced, casting a magical glow across the space. It felt sacred, ancient, like it held the forest's oldest secrets. The mother bear moved to a quiet corner, stopping before a wall. Aden followed, and froze. Etched onto the rock face was a mural, not a mere painting, but a story told in imagery. Strange creatures, ancient marks, scenes he could hardly believe were real. A story of life, death, and rebirth etched by time itself. The mother bear stared at the mural, then at Aden. She was waiting. Waiting for him to see, to understand. Aden stepped closer. Reaching out, he placed a hand gently on the stone. The figures shimmered as if awakening under his touch. An ancient understanding began to stir in his chest. A story was unfolding, not written in words, but in the language of life and nature. "This is what you wanted me to see," he whispered, half to the bear, half to the cave itself. Could it be that the mural held more than memory? A warning? A lesson? A key to the bond between humans and the wild that we have forgotten? Aden knelt before the wall, fingers brushing over ancient lines. A feeling washed over him, like standing before a living book, one written by the earth itself. In the center of the mural, a mother bear was depicted leading her cub through trials. Each chapter of their journey marked by a gift, a token of connection. Just like the ones he had found at his doorstep. Suddenly, it clicked. The mother bear was more than a wild animal. She was part of something larger, a living thread between nature and mankind. The gifts were her language, her trust. And now, her return meant something new was beginning. Aden looked into her eyes, finally understanding. He was no longer just a caretaker. He was chosen for something bigger. Just then, a soft rustle echoed behind them. Aden turned and saw the cub. But it was no longer a cub. It had grown. Its eyes were bright. Its stance, confident. It had become one with the wild. The reunion between mother and child was wordless but profound. And as Aden watched, he knew, this wasn't just about survival. It was about legacy. About continuity. About what it means to be alive, connected, rooted, free. The mother bear turned to him once more. Her gaze said it all, this journey wasn't over. This was just the beginning. She was inviting him not just to understand but to carry forward what he had learned. To protect. To share. To change. Aden followed her once more, deeper into the woods. Each step was no longer a walk into mystery but a step into meaning. At the heart of the forest, they arrived at a massive ancient tree, cracked by time, glowing faintly from within. As Aden approached, he felt warmth pulse through his body like touching the soul of the world. A whisper echoed through his mind, This is where it all begins. And in that moment, he knew he had been called not just to witness nature, but to become part of its story. Forever. Before he could gather himself, a strong gust of wind blew through the forest, swirling golden leaves around him. And in that moment, Aden realized he had been chosen. Chosen to continue a journey far greater than anything he had ever imagined. Was the mother bear merely a wild creature? Or was she a guide leading him down a new path, one that would unveil a deeper understanding of life and death? But there was one thing he knew for certain: his journey was not over. What lay ahead, what secrets he was about to uncover, would forever change the way he saw the world. And the mother bear's presence, in its quiet strength, was a sign. A sign that something profound was ready to be revealed, and that he was ready to face it. Did he have the courage to walk into the unknown? What other wonders did the forest hold for him? One thing was clear: this story was far from over. Together, we would continue discovering the mysteries of nature and the human heart. We invite you to follow along, and if you still believe in the magic of the wild, share this story and let us know what you think might happen next. The light from the ancient tree pierced through the fog, pushing it back into the edges of the forest. Aden stood still, overwhelmed by awe and curiosity. The mother bear remained beside him, her gaze unwavering, urging him to understand that this was the most important moment of the journey. The bear cub, now more grown, stood nearby, brave, yet still carrying traces of youthful innocence. Once again, Aden felt a profound connection not just to them, but to every living being in this forest. As Aden placed his hand on the ancient tree, a current of energy pulsed gently yet powerfully through him. He closed his eyes and felt the hum of the earth, the trees, and every creature surrounding him, as if they were all whispering the same truth: everything is connected. Every breath, every step, every life forms an infinite chain that never truly ends. The mother bear moved closer, touching her broad nose gently against Aden's chest. It was a blessing. A warmth spread through him, and in that touch, he knew this wasn't just about saving the cub. It was about understanding the sacred web that binds all living things, humans and nature alike. At that moment, Aden realized he wasn't just a caretaker. He was part of something far larger. He was not separate from the forest, he was of the forest. Life, death, sacrifice, and love, all of it part of an endless cycle. Every creature had a role to play. And we, too, can make the world better, but only if we learn to respect the invisible threads that hold it all together. He turned to look at the mother bear and saw something different in her eyes. A farewell. But not an ending. It was a passing of the torch, an acknowledgement that the cub was now strong enough to face the world alone. And the mother, with her love and patience, had fulfilled her sacred task. A soft breeze swept past, carrying the scent of damp earth, fallen leaves, and pine. Aden looked at the cub one last time, his heart swelling with peace. The cub approached him, eyes filled with quiet gratitude, as if saying goodbye. Then it turned and walked to its mother. Together, they disappeared into the deep shadows of the forest. Aden stood motionless, his chest heavy but his soul at ease. He had done his part. He had given all he could. And now he understood everything had its reason. The cub had to return to the wild. The mother bear had trusted him to help during a time of great need. This was nature's cycle, one he couldn't control, but one that had offered him a profound gift: the realization that love, patience, and sacrifice have no boundaries. As dusk settled and the forest began to darken, Aden felt something new stirring within him. Though the bears had vanished, they remained in his heart. The gifts they had left him, the signs, the lessons, they would always be part of his life. He turned to look into the vast forest, then up at the sky where the last rays of sunlight faded beyond the trees. This wasn't the end of a story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. One he would continue, guided by the wisdom of the forest, the love of the mother bear, and the truth in his own heart. Once more, he smiled. Not because of the parting but because of the understanding. He had come to know that pain and loss are part of life. But so are love, connection, and purpose. In the end, these unseen threads pull us closer to each other, to nature, to ourselves. And with that thought, Aden walked back into his home. The forest now behind him but never absent. It would always live within him as a part of who he was, and a part of the world he had come to understand. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share. What did this story teach you? How might it shape the way you live or forgive? Your voice matters. Reading your reflections brings strength, healing, and inspiration to us all. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us create more stories that awaken the soul. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in the next video.